Welcome back. After the break, it is, of course, Sports Tonight Live that you've joined the debate with, and we are very firmly talking about the World Cup. So we are thinking that FIFA shouldn't have obviously awarded Qatar, but so going back to that, realistically, Qatar couldn't hold it in the summer. If we think that Qatar deserved to hold the World Cup, what's the solution? Should they have had these air-conditioned stadiums that were sort of talked about?
I don't think you can... It's a bit like, I suppose, the nearest comparison we've got is we've got a general election in May. It's a bit like the politicians that will sit there and say, I'm going to do this, this and this. They get elected and they don't do it.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. So there is an acceptance, I suppose, that in every bid, I'm sure there are things that change. I'm sure we would have promised to do something particularly odd or different and maybe we couldn't have done it. I get there's an element of that. But there's so much... The issue is with Qatar, it's not a traditional country that has a history of football, so I don't think there's that desire, to be perfectly honest, within the football community amongst fans.
It's obviously for tourism. I mean, we look at the development of Dubai and then Abu Dhabi. Definitely. Qatar, this is for tourism. This is to show what they've got. Also, there's a massive question mark around the issue of tolerance of certain views on sexuality and things that come into this as well. There's issues as well around the safety of the workers that built the stadiums. The figures are scandalous if you look at them. Well, I mean, that is always a problem with the Middle East and the way that things have been developed.
I just don't think they're issues for FIFA, though.
Yeah, okay, I think that's an interesting...
They're not issues for FIFA. Why should... FIFA...
they're not a political body,
yeah. Why it should be a case of Western governments putting that pressure on Qatar. It shouldn't be a football organisation. I think people are expecting too much of FIFA.
We're having a sending off at the moment in the game. If you are watching, Kanishi's being sent
yeah,
off.
it looks like there's been a little bit of an issue. I'll come back to that shortly because I think my stream's just a little bit behind.
We've got a delayed stream. I'm sure if you're keeping one eye on it, you'll be knowing exactly what's going on. OK, so back to this World Cup debate. I think I completely agree. It's political bodies that should be dealing with that, and it is always frustrating when people put that pressure on sporting governing bodies to change. You know, even when we see Olympics and things like that, and people saying you shouldn't attend. It's not for the sporting world to decide that. You
know, FIFA, for all their problems and the incompetence we've just discussed, it's unfair to expect them to go into a country and to bring about political change. That's not FIFA's remit.
It's not possible either.
That's down to.
But I see the questions that you're raising as well.
I find it difficult as a football fan. I find it hard. It is the global game. You know, this is what we promote as a community, and we love to embrace that. And, you know, you look at the good work that was done when we took the World Cup to South Africa, places like that. People said, oh, it wouldn't be good. You know, what would it do? And the community awareness it brought. And
but there was obviously lots of problems around that as well.
I have no issue with it being awarded to Qatar, providing... I'm just not comfortable with it in some ways, aside from just the bid.
Do you think that only countries that can play the World Cup during the time that we've always seen the World Cup being played should be awarded it?
No, it's not about that. It's about a case of when Qatar put their bid in, they should be saying to the people that are voting for their World Cup bid that, by the way, we're going to be playing this in November and December. That's where the issue is.
It would be a bit like England winning the World Cup bid, going, we're going to play at all these fantastic stadiums, and then going, oh, actually, we are going to throw in pitches that are at 90-degree angles. And that, because it is literally changing the conditions.
It's totally a game changer. OK, so looking to our setup, the Premier League, it looks like if this happens, then the FA Cup replays may be something that's going to have to be looked at. And I'm sure most clubs will probably be happy about that anyway.
I think the FA should be happy about that because the FA Cup is years behind the League Cup. No, the Football League have been, what they've done with the Capital One Cup as it is now has revolutionised it. They've got rid of the replays. It's all down to penalty shootouts on the game, and there's that 30-minute of extra time, and teams buy into it more. Whereas I think with the FA Cup, it's a pain in that you've got more and more games, more and more games. I think they need to modernise that competition.
Yeah,
but it's a lifeblood for some of these smaller teams.
Look at Cambridge and
the thing is, what they can do though with that is. For instance, Cambridge get Manchester United, the lifeblood of the club. They're getting, well, the FA should allow Cambridge to say, look, we don't want to play our stadium. We want to play this at Old Trafford.
Wow, that's it's revolutionary. I don't agree with it.
They should modernise that whole competition. They've got to play it in the 21st century because it's all well and good talking about.
But you can't take away from. I think that's part of the FA Cup is having fans climbing trees and watching. That is the whole. Without that, I'm not sure there's much FA Cup. And then
where do you draw a line? It's a case of for years we were saying, oh, but it's all part of the game in terms of debating whether it was a goal or whether it wasn't. Goal line technology comes in. Change it for the better. You know, now those issues are gone in the game. And I just think that you should give the power to the club that, for instance, with Cambridge, you know, if they wanted to play their game at Old Trafford, they should have been able to do that.
Yeah, okay.
But then I don't think Cambridge would have got the same result first time round against Man United.
But that's down to Cambridge, isn't it? You know,
plus they've cashed in twice. They got TV rights the first time. Well, they came close enough to doing it. Come on, I think this has got to be looked at. I maybe for one season, the FA Cup I think has had a real resurgence this year.
I do.
It's been
it's only had a resurgence because of results. So they've got lucky.
I don't necessarily. I think the results have helped recently, but actually, I think the TV coverage, I think the news sort of TV coverage that we saw, BBC covering some of the very, very early rounds, has made a difference.
But remember, this is a competition that is the oldest domestic cup competition in the world, and the FA can't get a sponsor for it. But the Football League can for the League Cup.
Yeah, okay.
You know, they've got to look at that, and considering the way that the FA, the way they're having to pawn out Wembley to pay for it, and to bring money in from everywhere, sponsoring Wembley now with mobile phone companies.
Yeah.
They need to look at how they're going to make the FA Cup.
I think it's certainly something that's, I suppose, going to be looked at anyway when we look at this replay situation. In terms of the fans, I heard somebody talking earlier today on TalkSport, I think it was, saying that the fans haven't been considered. It's not for the fans, this Qatar World Cup. But actually, it would seem that the fans have been considered. But, and we will move on to this, we're very much going to get into sort of the racism situations that have occurred. Are fans going to be able to behave in the remits that have been set out by a Qatari government and the expectations, and how is that going to be managed?
I understand that the idea will be that there'll be fan parks rather largely built that are designated to be probably what you'd be more used to seeing at the European tournaments, with your squares, with your alcohol tolerance.
It's very tenuous, isn't it?
I find it difficult because if they hold those principles and that's the way they run their country, I'd like to think that you should respect it culturally. But clearly, FIFA and Budweiser, or whoever the sponsored beer, there are other beers out there, are going to be, are going to kind of trample all over that a little bit. So are fans going to get the real experience flying out to this man-made city?
And I find this interesting as well, that obviously it wasn't held in April because it clashes with Ramadan, but it's going to finish 2 days before Christmas. So again, it raises more issues than it should for a football game at the end of the day.
It could be great, though. Let's
it could be, and I think it probably will be eventually.
Imagine Qatar came in and said, look, this is when we want to do it. And initially, people would be shocked. I like my World Cup in the summer. I'm very much a traditionalist in football. I like that sort of thing.
We don't like change, though, do we?
Then I was thinking,
it's not about tradition either, though. It's about, the whole football season runs from August to May. It slots in there, not because they thought, it's perfect to, let's all play football then. It slots in with, with teams.
So 75% of the players, I'm just reading here, 75% of the players are from the European leagues. The disruption that it will cause is huge. To be honest, I think, it's once in, every 24 years or whatever it is, it's not a massive issue. It's going to happen. It's not going to be the worst thing in the world, and it's just going to shake it up for that time. And I think we should get on with it, but I think there's going to be so many more problems that occur.
I'd give it a go. I mean, look, it's going to probably happen now. People have said, it won't. England will last minute have to rescue it. I think we're getting to a point now we have to accept Qatar are likely to be hosting this.
Greg Dykes even said that
it's too far down the line.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen now. Everyone knows it's going to happen, so it's a case of just accepting it and trying to get the best deal we can get.
And why don't we embrace it and try it? And look, how great it's going to be on your office Christmas party. You're going to be having the England game on. I mean, December is going to be the worst month ever for productivity.
He's a confident man. England are going to be in the World Cup come 23rd of December.
Do you know what? We have the only thing that we can say for the England World Cup team is that they can't say they were tired. That is the only thing that could revolutionise our progress through it, is the fact that, that is an issue, actually.
The thing is, English players, they cut a lot of flack for that, but you look at it, they've just come off the back of a season where they've been playing 60, 65 games, high-intensity games.
Yeah.
They're playing Monday, Wednesday.
In the mud as well, let's not forget, they're playing to some of the European players,
they're playing Monday, Wednesday games, and they're playing
Thursday, Europa League.
a much higher
and
intensity.
We're going to see some Friday games, obviously not for these guys probably, but we're going to see some Friday games as well now,
It's about the intensity of those games as well, though, and that, it is the cliche of anyone can win a game in the Premier League, but when Real Madrid are turned up against Getafe, you know, they can play for 30 minutes and win that game 4 or 5-0.
I appreciate that there are easier leagues out there than the Premier League.
I think I love La Liga, and I still think it's better than. I think the top teams in there are much better than our teams, as being proven tonight. You know, Barcelona have pretty been quite comfortable with City, even though it's only 2-1. But you know, Barcelona lost on Saturday to what is described as probably a smaller team in the Spanish league. It does happen. My big concern will be the hallmarks is set for future World Cup bidding.
Yeah.
If Qatar get it on the back of broken promises, surely anyone can say anything and bid for the World Cup and get it and change their mind.
But that's the issue with FIFA and, you know, the allegations of corruption. It's a case of they need to get their own house in order to, you know, to avoid this stuff happening, because there are question marks about them. Why did you accept this World Cup bid?
But nobody seems to be. Everybody raises these
happening.
questions, but no challenges are making the difference. And this is not the first time we've seen a corrupt or potentially corrupt FIFA causing problems that perhaps other people within the industry don't like. So I guess that moves on to the FIFA situation. When is this going to be addressed?
When UEFA take a stand and do something about it. That's it could see. I'm not suggesting I'd want to see it, because I quite like the global game as it is. It could see a breakaway. And you've got to remember, you've got the association of really powerful clubs that sit there now. Are we the G20 we're up to now with them?
Yeah.
and I would never want to see a European Super League in the way that some people have suggested it could happen.
You're not going to see that.
I'd hope not.
The Premier League's too powerful.
I think
the Premier League is the one thing stopping it from happening. It's too powerful. I think with the Premier League, the way it is, the money that's in the Premier League, the billions going into the TV, it's too powerful for that to happen.
It's just the finance of the Premier League, I think, that would stop that.
Of course, it's, you know, the Premier League is humongous around the world, and you know, it's a big deal.
And we can see that obviously by the TV rights.
Obviously, Barcelona might want it, Real Madrid might want it, but
they negotiate their own TV deals, don't they? So I think it's a little bit different. But
the issue with the Premier League is so strong that, you know, that's stopping European football becoming, you know, a European game in terms of a European-wide league.
So let's start to wrap this up. Finally, let's have a look at how do you think the players are going to feel? Obviously, they're moving from playing in 6 degrees and less, if we're moving up north, to them playing in 24 to 30-degree heat. How do we think our players particularly...
Well, they're going to have to acclimatise. You know, what you've got to understand, they're not going to go from playing for West Ham on the Saturday to suddenly playing for England on the Wednesday in the World Cup.
Because of the tight constraints of this, it obviously isn't going to be as close as that. But I mean, when you see even things like when you see the Olympics and you see horses competing in the Olympics, they will be flown out maybe even a year in advance to acclimatise to those weather conditions. I don't think it's as dramatic, and it needs to be.
I think what you're going to see is the season leading into that World Cup and the season after it, we're probably going to go for calendar year seasons. Something like what they do in Major League Soccer, where it starts in March, ends in December. That's probably what's going to happen. They're not going to run a season from August through to May. They can't do it. It's logistically impossible.
It's certainly going to be interesting, because we've mentioned the FA Cup, the replays, we've mentioned this now. There is going to be changes to our football as we know it, basically, isn't there?
The one thing I'd like to see happen, if it could happen, is just give it a chance. It's going to happen now.
Yeah.
Let's try it. But I want England to not... I'd hate to see television pressure mean that up to 2 weeks before the tournament, our players are still playing in blood and thunder Premier League ties.
It's not going to happen.
You know, we're going to need a big window.
The thing is, I know you're saying that, and that's fine. The likelihood is it might not, but we do not know that. And it could still, because... as you've just said, the Premier League is all powerful, and what happens in the Premier League is dictated by so much more than the logics of things. So it could happen.
The issue is the Premier League's not going to want to have a season that is played over 2 parts. They're going to want to have a season that runs from A to Z. You know, and they will shift it. They'll probably shift it the year before, so they can play it in the year of the World Cup and the year after to slowly allow it to, you know, things to, you know, merge around.
It's obviously not on the same scale at all, but you know, the African Cup of Nations, we've just seen Yaya Toure win it and be back and playing within moments. I know, obviously, not playing tonight, but it does happen. It can happen. So, I mean, I guess it's a wait and see, basically.
Yeah, but like you say, it's the African Cup of Nations.
It's not. And also at the same time, it doesn't have such a detrimental effect on domestic leagues in the UK. You know, I'm a Palace fan, and we'd be seeing 3 or 4 of our squad at least, our main 11.
Well, as I said, 75% of players from European leagues. That is a big upheaval, isn't it? That's a big change.
It's interesting as well, because you see this shift that we've seen in the last 20 years, where club football's become more important in international football. Yet now we've got it where the international football is going to be dictating the club football. So it's a power struggle that it's going to be interesting to see who wins, because if FIFA wins, then it shows FIFA's they still have the power, that the countries, that the home nations, you know, the FA, the French FA, the Spanish, they're going to have the power over the clubs again. So it's interesting to see the way it's going to work.
Wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing as well.
No, I was going to say, and that's probably they should do. But anyway, this debate could roll on all night, I'm sure, because it is one of those topics that I think, to be honest, we're going to be talking about on our shows for a long time to come, because it's certainly going to be something that we're going to see a work in progress, let's say. So after the break, we'll be talking a little bit about the racism rows that have been occurring and this very strange situation that seems to be occurring around football at the moment, or disappointing situation, we should say. Then we're going to be looking ahead to Arsenal's game tomorrow and then the weekend games as well. So do stick with us. We'll be back in just a moment.